It's always existed.
But does that prove that it's right and good?
Well, I believe that man desires and believes and senses there's something higher than him, whether it's good or evil.
Christopher Hitchens, Stephan Munsey is in the lion's den with you. You hear his argument.
Thank you for your very handsome remarks, by the way, at the beginning. I think that it's true that people want something that one might call transcendent. I would prefer not to say spiritual. Transcendent, or the other word that's, I think that's accurate to describe it, as far as one can use this accurately, numinous, something beyond the obvious or the visible. I wouldn't trust anyone who didn't have that feeling, who didn't sometimes say, well, I don't know much of a Wordsworth fan you are, but suppose sunset on the lake, or if you're a mountain climber, you know the sort of thing I'm talking about. Or if you're not the outdoors type, or the nature worshipper, sitting, as I remember once doing in King's College Chapel, one of the marvels of Gothic architecture in Cambridge, in England.
But Stephan Munsey isn't just talking about awe. He's talking about belief.
Well, he didn't say anything about belief.
Yes, he did. The testimony of believers.
Yeah, well, he didn't succeed in saying anything in its defense.
But you and I know it's not just a pretty sunset he's talking about. He's got 10,000 people in his church who don't come just for pretty sunsets.
Sorry, perhaps I should have said I'm answering his points in reverse order. I'm just taking him up on the transcendent. Yeah. Yes, people do need it. There are many of us who can find that too in religion. In devotional music, religious music, if you like, and even in religious painting and architecture. And in my case, more poems of, say, John Donne or George Herbert. I wouldn't be without them. But I don't believe that there's any supernatural influence. And I can't believe it, and there are quite a number of us who are that way. Blaise Pascal actually addressed his pensée to us, those who are so made that they cannot believe. Now, that's also been just as true throughout human history, that there have been people who say, no, there aren't any gods. Usually they've been put on trial for it and been persecuted and tortured and condemned for it from the trial of Socrates onwards. But there it is.
Pastor Munsey,
these are the contending schools of thought who we both, in our respective ways, represent.
Stephan Munsey,
Mr. Hitchens, in your writings, I applaud you, especially with the Islam. And I saw you on Bill Maher, and I tell you what, I was very proud of you when you had understanding of that, which I'm totally in disagreement with their views. And then I've noticed you've taken trips to different parts of the world, and you've been appalled at what men have done in the name of religion. And I think there's been a mix-up where we say God and religion, but I want to give you a testimony of my 11-year-old daughter who I thought she had the flu or pneumonia. Come to find out she had, in x-rays in a matter of 24 hours, 100% Hodgkin's disease in her lungs. So the doctor tells us, by the best doctors in Chicago, she's going to die in 3 months. So we put chemotherapy in her. She loses her hair. She loses all of her. Now I'm a minister of 10,000 people who I teach them about God, and I also teach that I believe the God that I serve can heal. So now I'm put on trial on my belief system for my little girl, and she's dying in front of me. Now she's days away from death. All the medicines and the best doctors have done their duty, which we are thankful. I kneel down. I put my hand on her hand. I ask God, would you heal my baby? Mysteriously, supernaturally, whatever you want to call it, my testimony is this, is that she lives today. That was 4 years ago. Doctors are amazed. You've come too late to me, Christopher Hitchens, to tell me that that was not an act of a real God.
Are you going to call this father, Christopher Hitchens, a charlatan, a fool, with that testimony?
Well, it's a flat-out unbelievable testimony. And it's been the basis of religious charlatanry all along, to say that...
Do you doubt the story, though? I mean,
well, I know
his
that
experience
of it. I do know, I'm very sorry if I sound callous, but I do know of a lot of children who've died horribly, despite having been prayed over with extreme fervency. And I think it's disgusting to suppose that those prayers were inferior to other people's. And I further think it's irrational to say that if something has no apparent natural explanation, it must have a supernatural one. There are such things as unexpected recoveries, though it does seem to me she's had a long course of treatment. In fact, it was the first thing that the Reverend mentioned. But to claim that you have a personal line to God and that he'll intervene for your convenience is a disgraceful thing to say, in my view.
Wow.
And an insult to those whose children continue to suffer,
but Mr.
despite agonies of prayer on their behalf.
But Mr.
No, this is a conscious attempt to defraud people. It's the basis of a great deal of religious hucksterism, and as well as being immoral, it's highly unattractive.
Stephan Munsey?
Mr. Hitchens, the key is that it's not fair upon this planet to human mankind to discredit a personal testimony and then to try to encumber ideas of because someone else I know nothing of or about, you cannot take that away from me. What about the thousands of people that continue to come? I can't beg people to come. I don't plead with people to come. I'm building on and on and on, and people's lives are being changed, and they credit it to God.
Christopher Hitchens, it's his experience. He believes it, and they come by the thousands. There's a need.
Yeah, if this wasn't so, there'd be no need for books saying that it was nonsense.
What about the need that drives them to his church?
Well, absolutely. It's the same need that drives people to blow up each other's mosques in Iraq and say that God made them do it. That's testimony, isn't it? It's the same need that makes people think they see statues of the Virgin Mary bleed or weep when statues don't in fact do that.
Stephan Munsey?
It's the same need that makes people consult the astrology columns in the magazines, because the astrology column will tell you, in spite of your boring and banal life, that the stars are arranged with you in mind.
Pastor Munsey?
It's contemptible, but the people who exploit it and make a trade out of it, a living out of it, are beneath contempt.
And that brings me to the point that that when you do believe in higher powers, you must believe in the right one. And the right one does not tell you to blow somebody up. The right one, the God that I'm talking about, tells us to love one another, to help one another, to meet the needs of humanity. I don't know about the God that tells you that, you blow somebody up, you got 25 virgins waiting for you in heaven as a reward.
Plenty of Christian soldiers out there. Pastor Munsey?
Sir?
There are plenty of Christian soldiers out there with guns as well.
Yes.
You're just saying it's a different quality of violence.
Well, I'm expressing that the true God, the real God, and of course, Mr. Hitchens refers to the New Testament that it is not real and that Jesus is not real. The fact is that when you believe that and understand from the Bible, you will understand that we have a God who is merciful, who gives us boundaries. A while ago, Mr. Hitchens says there are some people that believe that God doesn't believe in ham. Well, if you look at the dietary laws of what God expresses, it will help you in life.
Reverend Stephan Munsey, thank you very much for joining us. We're talking this hour with journalist, critic, and newly minted American citizen Christopher Hitchens. His new book is God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything, and it comes out in train with a string of books from Richard Dawkins and Daniel Dennett and Sam Harris. A lot of blowback in the publishing world, at least these days, against religion and its impact.